Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining from today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. And I'm here conducting our weekly live stream to talk about all things related to digital transformation. So thank you for being here today. Appreciate you joining the live stream today. We are streaming to several different platforms today, including LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok today as well. We're on TikTok Live. So if you see me looking off to my side on either platform, it's because I have a phone open with TikTok and I've got my computer in front of me with the other platforms we're streaming to. So thank you for joining today. We are going to cover today an introduction to ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, and other emerging technologies. Although there's part of me that thinks we probably won't get much past ChatGPT and AI because it's such a hot topic right now. That may be where we spend a lot of our time. So look forward to the conversation today. I'll introduce our guest in just a moment. But before I do, just a couple logistical things. First of all, we're going to be taking questions related to ChatGPT, AI, any sort of emerging technologies that you're interested in. We'd love to hear your comments and questions. We'll be taking your questions here today. So feel free to drop those questions in the chat at any point along the way. And then also, if you could, as we get started here, if you could just drop in the chat where you're joining from today. Love to hear where our global audience joins from today. I know this is our first time live on TikTok, so I'd love to hear from you on TikTok. Where are you joining from today? What city and country are you from? Same with LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, wherever you're joining from. Just drop in the chat where you're from today. I'll keep an eye on it here and get to questions as well. So we'd love to hear where you're joining from today. Again, this is a weekly live stream we do every Tuesday, same time, same place, same platforms. Wherever you're watching today, you can find us same time at that same platform. We cover things related to digital transformation. This is a live interview we do that becomes part of our weekly Transformation Ground Control podcast. So we edit this, we polish it, we add additional content, and then it gets released next week on our weekly podcast called Transformation Ground Control. And you can find that on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and you can also find it on Apple, Google, Amazon, whatever audio podcast platforms you listen. So be sure to check that out and and check out that podcast. It's a weekly podcast that covers all things related to digital transformation. So with that all being said, as sort of a preamble, I wanted to introduce our guest here today to talk about ChatGPT, AI, and emerging technologies. And this is a repeat guest, someone I've had on the live stream and the podcast before, who is somewhat of an expert in all sorts of emerging technologies, not just ChatGPT and AI, but others as well. So joining me today is Chiara Munaretto, which I apologize, I don't have the proper Italian pronunciation of that, but welcome to the show, Chiara.
Thank you very much.
Now, how should I have said your name? Maybe we could start there. Maybe because I like hearing it, your accent much better than the way I said.
Chiara Munaretto.
Yes. So what she said, that's her name. That's much better said than the way I pronounce it. So great to have you here today, Chiara. Thank you for being here again for a second time. Maybe just to get started, just drop in or let us know what a little bit about your background. What is it you do? How did you get involved in technology? What do you do within technology? All that good stuff.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today. My background is in marketing, actually, but I've always been into digital marketing, especially, and since 2 to 3 years, I've been pretty much involved in Web3 and specifically blockchain applications. So really try to understand how to bridge Web 2 with Web 3, mostly on the marketing and sales application. And on the other side, I focus on emerging technologies such as AI and AR and VR. Currently, I founded my first student association for Web3 here in the Netherlands, where I'm studying, and it's called Maschain. So I can put the link later if you want to go and check what we are doing there. And aside that, I'm currently writing my thesis about supply chain integration with AI, blockchain, and Internet of Things to really try to see how we can better track and measure the carbon footprint inside supply chains. So I'm trying to get our knowledge in as many topics as possible, but mostly focusing on real use cases.
Great. Well, that's great. It's such an exciting field that we're both in, but especially your focus on some of these really cool, newer, emerging technologies. That's got to be a fun job to really stay at the forefront of some of the stuff, I would imagine. And especially with ChatGPT, this is a really hot thing right now. I can't remember the last time a technology came to the market with such force and momentum, and something that's gone viral so fast. It's been a long time. Even when I remember when Google came out back in the 90s, I remember when I first heard about Google and what a cool search engine it was. It was kind of a big deal then, but it doesn't feel like quite as big of a deal as even this. Um, and just to give some preamble, maybe I'll ask you here in a second just to explain what ChatGPT is here in a moment, Chiara. But if you look at if you look at even just pop culture right now in the media, there's so much coverage of ChatGPT. For example, I was on an airplane last night traveling to where I am today in Florida, in the United States, and I was sitting next to a lady who was reading a Time magazine, and on the cover was an article about ChatGPT, and she was talking to her husband about ChatGPT. And so I started talking to her too, and it turns out she owns an art museum here in Florida, coincidentally, where I'm at today, that does AI for artwork. I'm going to come back to that here in a moment, but it's just very interesting that even the world of arts and business, commerce, all different areas are now really catching on to ChatGPT. And in fact, one other data point that I'll give you just to share what a big deal ChatGPT seems to be becoming is there's a popular TV show in the United States called South Park. It's like an animated comedy type of show, and they tend to cover a lot of things in pop culture and current events and that sort of thing. And they had a whole episode dedicated to ChatGPT. So I figure when comedies and pop culture references start to pick up on this stuff, it's hit the mainstream. But just to help us all understand, I think a lot of us have heard of ChatGPT, or most of us have probably heard of ChatGPT. Maybe what's a simple way or sort of an introduction to the concept of what ChatGPT is?
Yes, of course. Absolutely. It has been like one of the greatest news of all times. Like, especially Bill Gates just like launched his AI reflection, and he was mentioning that ChatGPT could have the same potential of computers in the 90s and so on. So literally being a disruptive technologies. But to give you a quick explanation of what ChatGPT is, so first of all, let's break down the words, so chat and GPT. So chat stands for chatbot, and that's exactly what ChatGPT is. Well, GPT stands for generative pre-trained. So it means that this AI model has been trained with a large amount of data, and this is why it's so successful, because an AI model to function well needs a lot of data. So ChatGPT is a large language model, and you can understand it as a sort of virtual personal assistant. You can ask whatever question you want, and ChatGPT will give you an accurate answer based on the information the data is built upon. So since a month ago, it was actually only referring to data coming from before 2021, but with the new plugins and with the ChatGPT 4, it actually give you real-time information. And especially now they just launched the new plugins, and it's crazy how fast this technology is evolving, because now with third-party integration, you could book a flight directly through ChatGPT just by asking which are the prices, make a comparison, and book the flight directly, all with your virtual personal assistant. So I think it could be very much a disruptive technology.
Yeah. I follow there's a YouTuber I follow who's actually been a guest on the show before. His name is Walker Reynolds, and he works in the industry 4.0 and manufacturing space. And he did a video recently on this topic, and he was talking about how he thinks that 50% of the U.S. population, or 50% of the U.S. labor force, will be unemployed in the coming years because of ChatGPT, and he attributes it all to the regenerative AI technologies like ChatGPT. I know we're going to get to this in a moment, but ChatGPT is not the only example.
Absolutely.
There's other examples. Maybe help us start there. What are, in addition to ChatGPT, which I think is the one that's for whatever reason become sort of the mainstream or the common recognized name, what are some of the other technologies that are similar to ChatGPT that we might hear about here in the near future?
Yes, before stepping into this, I think you made a good point, which is about employment. So when we consider employment, I believe that for sure there will be some jobs that will be replaced by AI. But if we think about history, it has always happened this way every time new technology has been implemented. So if on one side AI will cut job, on the other side it will create new types of jobs. So if we look at repetitive tasks, then maybe there's not another job that could be substituted, so it will just be replaced. But if we think about marketing, for example, it's not very much likely to substitute the person itself doing the marketing activities, but it will automate and be integrated with more personalized content for the audience. So it's kind of also changing the way we perceive the job. So it's not more on just on the individualistic, I would say, way, but it's more like also on a shared and collaborative approach to make the user very much valued and give the most personalized content possible. And
It's
coming
good.
back to your question, indeed, there are other big enterprises, giant tech that enter this industry. We have Google, we have Microsoft. Google launched Bard, which is pretty much not the same, but it's still a chatbot that will actually be launched soon. It's not yet available, so it's not integrated into Google yet. If you go to Google, you won't see Bard, but you need to join the waiting list to see how Bard works. But the objective is still the same. So to sort of have this virtual personal assistant that gives you more personalized information based on the question you're asking. So now if you go on Google, you see a lot of different pages that may be related, but that don't answer directly your question. You need to read through before getting an answer. Well, Bard aims at giving you exactly already the answer. So it's faster and more accurate. Aside that, a project that I'm really, really excited is actually the one of Microsoft. So it's Copilot, and I think it's revolutionary. But first, we need to understand that Microsoft bought ChatGPT. So Microsoft now is integrating the ChatGPT technology into their Microsoft Office package, for example. So we will see how ChatGPT and this AI language model will be integrated into Word, Excel, Microsoft Teams, Outlook, but very much in, I would say, more productive way. So if you take into account PowerPoint, for example, you could upload a Google Doc and ask ChatGPT or the AI model, can you make a presentation based on this Google Doc? And a few minutes later, you will have 10 slides with the content of that Google Doc. If we think about Excel, for example, instead of writing the formula, you could ask the chatbot, can you make the sum of these numbers? And the sum will appear. And once again, sorry.
It's okay. ChatGPT can't help with that. It can't help with that.
Exactly. If we think about Google Meets, for example, Microsoft Teams, we could, for example, have already a transcript of the meet, and then directly you will send an email via Outlook of the summary of the email. So in terms of productivity, this is literally 100x. So this is how I also see enterprises moving in the space, because the way teams work together, it will be very much efficient. So on one side, once again, we think about unemployment, because I don't know, now a person to make a presentation, it may take an hour, 2 hour. Now with Microsoft, it could take literally, I don't know, 10 minutes. So then you see how two people still needed? I don't know, it depends. So there's a lot to discuss, but I think there are great technologies that, if implemented well, can really boost productivity.
Yeah, yeah, it's great points, and I think what's super interesting is I feel like right now the human race, we all as humans are just getting our arms around the textual aspects of ChatGPT. So being able to enter into the chat, help me, understand a certain research topic. You can do, there's a lot of really menial tasks or writings, I should say, that you can use ChatGPT for. I had a funny, or what I thought was funny. My wife did not think this was funny, but I was texting my wife, and she was running late, and so I was with my kids, and I said, "Well, watch this. I'm going to use ChatGPT to send mom a really nice text about how she's running late. She needs to hurry." So I'm going to say it in a more polite way than I might otherwise say it. So I went to ChatGPT and said, write a text to my wife about why she's running late or something like that, and it gave me like 5 options, and I just cut and pasted and texted it to my wife, and I even left in it says it said insert wife name in parentheses, and I even left
Yeah.
that part just to be funny to show so she would know, because we had been talking about ChatGPT. So there's little things like that you can do, like if you want help writing something, or you want help with like I had it write a short story for my younger son, just to tell him a story. So I said, let me have ChatGPT write a story about, I forgot what I put in, but I kind of gave it a real high level scenario, and then it wrote like a 5-paragraph story within 10 seconds. So it's things like that I think are on the textual side. But there's also what you're talking about with Copilot, and also with another product that Microsoft has invested in that I didn't know until just a few hours ago, when I was on an airplane sitting next to a lady that is she owns an art museum in Florida, and it's a tech enabled art museum that uses AI, and they've been working on this project for like I think 3 or 4 years, where they are taking AI to where you can go in as a patron and share your dream. Like if you have a dream or you have a vision of what you want a piece of art to look like, you can tell the AI model what you want, and it'll create a replica or a painting or a picture of whatever it is you describe. So it's getting into the whole creative side of things as well, which to me that seemed like one thing that would be safe, would be the real creative aspect of the world.
Definitely.
But even the creative sides of the world seem like it's being potentially impacted by ChatGPT.
Yes, one point on that to mention is like if we think that now we expanded almost at its maximum the creator economy, but all creators still needed maybe a social media manager or someone to rely on. Now they can ask this kind of question to ChatGPT. And this is revolutionary if you think, because you can really set up a brand, set up a shop on just based on the information that ChatGPT gives you. And you just can enhance this with your personality, with your ideas, but you can cover all topics that maybe a team could cover. So
Right.
for creators, I think this is like it would impact the way they do business online.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I agree. And it's, there's another school of thought that it's not, ChatGPT and other AI technologies are not only going to be disruptive in terms of potentially eliminating jobs, but it's also going to change remaining jobs to be more intelligent. Basically, I think what one study or one hypothesis I read was that the average IQ of the average person in the labor force is going to go from like 70, an IQ of 70, up to in the 90s. So you're going to have, it's something that is going to favor super intelligent people, and I guess it begs a question of what about other people? How will they be impacted? Will it just be a net negative for them? Is it a net positive for the others? I think there's a lot of unknowns around the societal and economic impacts of ChatGPT, which it's fascinating and scary all at the same time.
Yeah, because if you think about education, for example, if you have, like, let's say, critical, intelligent people that can really see the potential in ChatGPT, they will make use of ChatGPT, but without copying the entire outcome. But if you just have someone like even, naive children who are just growing, they will just want to get homeworks done. So they won't even think about, okay, is this correct? What am I learning? No, it's just,
Right.
okay, I just copy paste it, so this is done. So this way, it very much impacts the way people, but especially children, would grow because they have access to internet. Especially if you consider 10 to 16, they may not be mature enough to actually think and use ChatGPT just for their personal development, but just to really get things done. So in this case, of course, there's the bad side, I would say, unless you have parents that educated and everything, but uh, nowadays the internet, it's accessible literally to everyone more and more.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually debating this with my wife as well, as it relates to our kids who are both in school. One's in high school, one's in middle school, 7th grade and 10th grade, and we're debating on whether is ChatGPT and using ChatGPT to help you with homework, for example, or to help you write an essay or a report. Um, is that ethical? I mean, is that right? Is that cheating? We actually one of our sons has a friend who got in trouble for using ChatGPT to write a paper, and he did something that wasn't very smart. He didn't even read the results, and so there was something in it that was a clear indicator that it was a bot that wrote it, because he didn't go through and edit it and kind of make it his own. But It does beg the question of is this a big deal? Is this wrong for kids and other people to use ChatGPT in this way, or is it like the calculator? When the calculator came out,
Yeah.
however long ago, you still had to learn math just to understand the concepts. But today most of us just use a calculator to get the answer we want. So I guess it's sort of a question that I can't answer. I don't have a good answer for. I don't have a strong opinion on either on whether it's right or wrong in that context. But how do you think in general, ChatGPT and other types of related technologies like that, how do you think they'll impact enterprises, just organizations and businesses in general?
Yeah, as I said before, I think it would be something needed on one side, because it would just enhance productivity and especially
Hmm.
share information and have more precise insights. So, once again, considering marketing and sales, if you think about the strategies to better sell a product, you could come up with 100 strategies, but how can you prove them? So ChatGPT kind of gives you all the steps of the funnel and can really make you, like, help you making better decisions. So the way I use it, for example, I always ask ChatGPT a lot of questions and never rely on the first question. So always try to build upon the answer, sorry, that was given by ChatGPT. But in this way, you can really be open minded at extreme levels because you can build connection in an easier way. Because I don't know, if you want to sell a product and you're like, okay, I'm convinced I will go this way, but then ChatGPT says, okay, but why don't you combine this product with this product and you upsell them? You're like, okay, that's interesting. I never thought of that. So I would say it's just like having a big brain that thinks for all the enterprise, that even if you combine all minds team together, it won't come up with the same solution.
Hmm.
So I think that in this way, it's very much revolutionary because it really allows you to think broader and also allows you to hit the mark or hit your objective way easier.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great point, and yeah, there's so much to think about as it relates to this and how businesses might use it. I want to turn to the audience really quickly too, and just acknowledge where a lot of people are joining from today. I'll start with all the non TikTok platforms, and I'll come over to TikTok here in a second. But joining from we have people joining from Denver, Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado, Atlanta, Georgia, Green Bay, Wisconsin, London, UK, Montreal, Canada, New Jersey, Scotland, Saudi Arabia, India, Montreal, etc. So Dallas, Texas, and a bunch of other places. I won't list them all, but thank you everyone for joining and for letting us know where you're joining from today. Over on TikTok, we have people from California, Saudi Arabia, as well as Wisconsin and Colorado as well, among others. So thank you everyone on TikTok for joining as well. I want to come back to this one thing about ChatGPT in particular, and I think this might be true for Bard and some of the other technologies. But ChatGPT, one nuance or thing to know about it is that the knowledge that ChatGPT has is largely based on the wealth of information that existed up until late 2021. Is that correct? So any world event or anything that has happened in the world since late 2021, ChatGPT doesn't necessarily know about unless we teach it, unless we show it or we teach it what has happened. And I'll give you an example. I went in and I was just doing some research on the industry, the consulting industry that we're in, and I just wanted to know: does ChatGPT know who Third Stage Consulting is? Do they know where we fit in the marketplace and all this stuff? So I was asking a lot of questions about Third Stage Consulting, and I asked it the question of: does Third Stage Consulting have international offices? And it came back and said, no, it doesn't. Third Stage Consulting is based in Denver, Colorado, in the United States, which is true. We are based in Denver, Colorado. So I had to go back and say, Third Stage Consulting has offices in London and Australia and in South Africa. So I had to tell it that. And then it came back and said it can't confirm it. And I said, okay, well, here's a link. And so I sent it a link to our website that has the contact information of our different offices. And it took a few seconds and it said, you are correct. Third Stage Consulting has offices in London. And it sort of listed off the offices we had. So it's maybe have you experienced this or have you seen this where you sort of have to teach it, and it's a learning mechanism too, and it itself has to learn and we have to teach it. And so back to your point about human interaction, you need that human interaction to be able to direct it and teach it in the same way that it's helping us.
Yes, absolutely. But on Chrome, it's actually available an extension that is called Web Chat GPT, and that extension allows you to reach the information of 2022 and 2023 till the ChatGPT 4 will be released, and then the integration will be already inside ChatGPT 4. So from whatever browser, you could
Mm,
access real time information. So this, I think that will come in the next months. But I think that the interesting part that I was reading this article and they mentioned that basically, yes, ChatGPT relies on the information that is available online and especially on papers and research. But this paper, like the majority of papers or PDFs, report different authors' opinion together. So still, it builds upon somehow the same knowledge repurposed in different ways.
mm,
So, like, if I don't know, three researchers just present different views of different other researchers, they're not adding a point necessarily. They're just representing the same information. So, still, the way information is presented as an answer from ChatGPT is somehow limited because
yeah,
it's not thinking; it's just combining the kind of information. So also there, that's why I would never just do copy paste. Like
yeah,
the way I use this for my thesis, for example, like in Mastic University, we had a meeting with the board of examiners, for example, because they wanted to see how students and the board of examiners feel the introduction of ChatGPT should be considered plagiarism, should be not. So this is interesting, and Mastic University wants to integrate ChatGPT, of course, also with plagiarism rules, so you cannot just copy paste. But as I said before, if you just use it to enhance your opinions, to enhance your thinking, your reasoning, I think this is can really make you grow. Like
yeah.
so, yeah, I would say this is the most prominent side.
Yeah, and there's also the question I have, and I don't know if you have an answer for this or if this is just an open question that none of us know the answer to. But one question I have is what about the information that we feed it as humans? So our flawed information, our flawed opinions, um, we feed those biases into the AI model. Does that make the AI model biased? I mean, I've tried asking it questions that are very clearly opinion based, like who's the best president ever in the United States, and it won't answer. It'll say, at least when I tried it, it said
Yeah.
I don't have an opinion on that. It basically says that's not my job to give an opinion, this sort of thing. But the question becomes: is could I or other people use it, not nefariously, not necessarily in a bad way, but even unintentionally, give it biases based on the information that we're feeding it? Back to your point about needing that human analysis and knowing how to understand and interpret. Do you have thoughts on that, or do you know how that might work in the future if it were to get faulty inputs from us or biased inputs from us?
Yes, so actually, one key thing about ChatGPT is the way you ask question. So if you will ask, what is the best president in the last 10 years or something like that, it won't give you an exact answer. But if you, for example, copy paste a certain data set and you'll say, okay, based on this data, who is the most likely to succeed in the next months, for example, then it will give you an answer because you're not asking exactly to say who's the best, but you're saying who's the most likely to based on this. So it's like predicting. And this is something ChatGPT can do. So one key thing to learn is to talk to ChatGPT correctly. For example, another thing that works a lot is saying act as you were, I don't know, a professor, a doctor, or whatever. So ChatGPT sort of um, personificates that person and gives you advices based on that, not just based on general knowledge, but based on the role uh, it's impersonating, let's say. And in terms of risks, I would say, well, there are many, of course, especially because it's somehow still at very early stage. So the kind of information that is taken is not really controllable, especially for the user. So we just trust the system, but I'm still on a question mark on whether, I don't know, for a year all people are against a certain um, actor, president, persona, and ChatGPT gathers that data. Is that going to influentiate final question, or ChatGPT will just report objectively what people has been talking about lately,
Right.
because that could lead to misinformation, for example.
Right.
So that's also what I was looking at the interview of the CEO, and he was literally saying that one of the biggest risks is disinformation, because if you report without actually evaluating what ChatGPT is saying, you may just spread again disinformation, and this is a loop. And then the algorithm ChatGPT that learns from new data, it will learn from the wrong data. So in this sense, it's a loop of disinformation. So it's tricky.
Yeah. Well, and there's also I was actually chatting with a couple months ago. I was in London. Actually, I met you when I was in London. I met you in person there as well. After you were on the show last time, the last time you were here. But I was in London meeting with our London office a couple months ago, and the team there was talking about how um, I don't know if it was a client of ours or if it was an industry peer, but somehow they knew of a consulting engagement that was an ERP implementation, and the consultants were using ChatGPT to do some tasks related to the implementation, and they were taking client confidential information and putting it into ChatGPT to
Yeah.
do the analysis or whatever. And now all of a sudden, it's OpenAI. Now, what was confidential information is now part of open source AI technology, and so technically the data is out there and it's public domain now. So I don't know if that seems like another conflict or potential conflict we may see in the future as well, as confidentiality and data security and all that stuff too. Is that something you've seen or had any insights into yet?
Yes, I mean, the thing is that it's somehow still on a beta, so there is no regulation yet. It's
Mm,
just like it's trained on as much data available as possible. So the more precise information you're giving to ChatGPT, the more this can grow. And on one side, the more precise information you give to ChatGPT, the more accurate answer you may have. So you have to decide if you want to step back on the result or step forward with privacy. So I think that this will be one of the challenge of ChatGPT, the way they use information they receive, because now we are giving them all our data. So if they can implement it, for example, also in healthcare, it's kind of challenging because you're really giving patient detail. Is that a fraud? Is that illegal? Do we have regulations for ChatGPT specifically, or just for AI in general? So there's a lot going on, and in general, I think we're just very much in the early stage.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. In fact, there's a lot of questions and comments that are related to this topic of
Yeah.
how AI is going to affect humans in our worlds in general. So I'll get to a few of these comments here. Just a comment from uh, Latwinia on YouTube. I probably pronounced that as well as I pronounce your name, Chiara, and I completely butchered that, so I apologize for that. But Latwinia says, I've been waiting for this video as a new digital transformation consultant. Thank you for dropping this content. So thank you for being here. A lot of thank yous that came in here. Here's a really interesting article. I can't show it just because it's such a long comment and it won't show on the screen here, but I'll read it to you. And this is from Pretik on LinkedIn. And Pratik says, according to a recent Economist article, even in countries like South Korea that have implemented AI and robotics and actual industry practices, the number of humans to AI ratio is close to 10. So, and I'm not sure what the denominator is there, but I think what he's suggesting is that there's plenty of humans interacting with AI for, as AI has grown in South Korea, so has the number of humans that are using AI or interacting with AI. So the question is, so the latest aspersions around generative IT or generative AI replacing human. I'm sorry. Let me say this again. I'm saying this wrong. Are the latest aspersions about generative AI replacing human jobs unfounded? So I guess it's a question. I think it goes back to what you said a couple times throughout
Yeah.
this conversation: is there is going to be work needed. It's just going to change the type of work that's being done, and it might just totally. It's definitely going to be disruptive, but it may not be something that eliminates jobs as much as we think.
Yeah, so another thing that I think it's worth it to mention is that we always need to consider which way we are going as a society. So I think we're kind of moving more and more towards a more individualistic society, so
Mm,
that everyone has the opportunity to set up their own business, to grow individually, to make a profit for them, and not necessarily work for a company. And whether this is something you agree with or not, I think this is something that will happen, or at least this is the path we are going to. So when you mention replacing human jobs, if we are going in this direction, there will be more and more people that won't be replaced by AI, but just because they will start using AI to create their own job rather than get employed by a company and then maybe get replaced by AI. So I think they're like coming with this. There's also a shift in society, shift in economy construction somehow.
mm,
So I think there are a lot of things to consider, not just AI is bad because it's replacing jobs and so on. We should consider the overall ecosystem and the values we're bringing forth and so on.
right. It's great points. More comments here from this one from YouTube. Grandmaster UV is the screen name on YouTube, and Grandmaster has some funny but insightful comments. I like this ChatGPT and virtual reality matrix. It's awesome. Also goes on to say high tech for the win. And then also a comment here that Grandmaster EV has is it's all about the high tech. I'm all about flying saucer high tech too on top of everything else. So he's equating it to he or she is equating it to a flying saucer on top of everything else, which is interesting. So Grandmaster EV on YouTube is a big fan of ChatGPT. Um, and here's another comment, and this is just really interesting to see kind of people's knee-jerk reactions to this concept of what's happening or how will this affect humans. But Winston on YouTube says it's all about how you embrace the tool, but too early to say on that level of detail for human replacement. I think that's a fair assumption. I don't think any of us really have any idea or know. We might have our hypothesis or speculation of what we think might happen, but I don't know that any of us really fully understand the magnitude of how this could impact everyone. Um, Here's another interesting. This is a comment from Ryan. I'm going to try and show this comment. This is Ryan on LinkedIn. Ryan says, I've been using ChatGPT to make extensive prompts to then feed into Midjourney, which is an artwork creation platform, and the results are wild. When do you see
Yeah.
connections like Zapier, et cetera, um, being able to seamlessly connect into AI platforms? And this is true too. There's another product. I think I mentioned it in passing a moment ago, but there's Microsoft has another AI product that I think they've invested in. I don't know that they developed it. They may have developed it. I could be wrong on this, but I know that Microsoft somehow owns or has been involved with a product called Dolly, and it's DAL.
Yeah, because it's still like developed by OpenAI.
Okay,
So there's been like DALL-E, the first DALL-E I think it was in 2016, and then there's been the new DALL-E 2, and I tried it. It does like the same mentality of Midjourney actually. Uh, but yeah, just like great text to image software, so that they use AI models to generate images starting from your input, which is text based.
right,
So coming also back to the point of Zapier, it's one of the integration of the plugins that ChatGPT wants to insert. So in terms of email writing, this of course it's crazy. Like you could just have one email ready just by making a few bullet points. And I think that on one side, this is not that bad, because if you think about it, every time you need to say like dear, then at the end best regards and so on, it's just like a structure, a formality. What you really need to check in is like the core, the content. But the way you should just be formal, I think as a starting point, as a template, I think it's good. And I also saw a comment mentioning cover letters.
yep,
uh yeah.
yeah. One comment
Exactly. So for
to
cover letters, that's I think something that the company should take care of. So if you want to ask cover letter and you know that people may use ChatGPT, then you should have a plagiarism system. I think I know that it might sound controversial because maybe people shouldn't use ChatGPT to write cover letters in the first place, but we cannot rely only on the positive thinking of people and ethical behavior. So if I was a company, I would have a plagiarism check before just relying on a cover letter.
Right. It's a great point. I think you said something really insightful, which is it's up to the employers or the organizations to see through that and just know that this stuff is out there. One thing that sort of related to this, as far as organizations having to do their due diligence, one thing that um, has come to mind too is that, when you think about phishing scams and things like that, or phishing attempts on email, a lot of times you get, these automated emails that look like you or I,
Yeah.
but it's not you or I, and it's asking someone to send you money or whatever. And it sounds like it appears as though it's from someone you trust, but it's really a fake account or whatever. The reason I bring this up is that I could also see there being really nefarious uses of AI technologies and maybe even criminal uses of
Yeah.
AI technologies to replicate you or I, to either impersonate us or use the facial replication or the speech replication and that sort of thing to make videos or audio that look like you or I, but it's not, or anyone. So that's another thing you have to think about is how does this affect crime and sort of
Yeah.
cyber crime and that sorts of thing.
Yeah, I think one of the scariest, I would say, technology that could really impact the way we just perceive humans is deepfakes. Because you could put whatever face on whatever body saying whatever, talk about whatever topic. So this once again relies on the ethical behavior of human beings, but to what extent we can rely on billions of people. So I think that we should really pressure regulations, at least to a certain extent, because otherwise it's just freedom for everyone. And
Yeah.
I think it's too much, because as long as it's like a famous like the president or something that are making some jokes with deepfakes and so on, you somehow know that this cannot be real. But if you take a person that is not famous, so it just has maybe a couple of friends that could testify that this is wrong, that when you go in court is way harder to prove, because if the deepfake is well made, it's hard
Yeah.
to define that.
Yeah. In fact, there's over on TikTok where we're streaming today too. There's an account that I followed for a long time before I realized what it was, and that was the
Was
account
it?
is the Tom Cruise one. Have you seen that one?
No, 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 no.
There's one called the handle name on TikTok is called Deep Tom Cruise. And actually, if you like Tom Cruise or even if you just know who he is,
Yeah.
whether or not you're a fan doesn't matter. If you go to Deep Tom Cruise on TikTok, follow that account, and the videos on there are unbelievable. I mean, I thought it was Tom
Okay.
Cruise. I thought there's no way that is not Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
And it looks like a younger version of Tom Cruise. I mean, it looks like when he was like 40, not 60 or whatever he is now, even though
Okay.
he still looks the same largely, which is very frustrating as an aging middle-aged male. But all that aside, when you look at the videos, though, it looks and sounds, acts, his mannerisms, it's just like him. And I wondered like how they created this, and it's all through AI. And apparently, Tom Cruise has some sort of equity investment in this company, and they gave this account permission to use his
Okay.
likeness or whatever. And the whole account is all just fake Tom Cruise videos, and they're kind of funny too, which
It's
is why I
crazy.
followed it. Yeah, so it is crazy because I cannot tell. Like, there's no part of it that looks fake. There's no part of it that doesn't look like Tom Cruise. It doesn't look glitchy or robotic or weird or anything like that at all. So I'm fascinated by that too. So that's another use case of how scary and cool it is all at the same time. Here's a comment from Michael on LinkedIn, and Michael's comment is automate what works. Spend your time innovating, raising the bar. The new average performance improves substantially. Onboarding and time to productivity accelerated. I think that's a great point. I mean, I think that it does raise the bar. It pushes us all, and in many ways, it probably makes us all a bit smarter, or at least it allows us to facilitate intelligence, even if we're not as intelligent as others. We can at least facilitate intelligence and communicate intelligently, which I think is a great point. Here's an interesting question, which I might add to. This is from LinkedIn. As Aldine on LinkedIn says, can ChatGPT be further developed to help with other aspects such as designing 3D drawings? Have you seen that?
So another aspect of ChatGPT is coding. So I
Mm.
tried this myself, and literally it gives you correct code just to copy paste for programmers or for developers. And it could be for a website, it could be for blockchain, it could be for an app, it could be for whatever, literally. So for 3D modeling, I would say that Midjourney is actually the one that really is taking the lead in this more than ChatGPT. So I think that ChatGPT itself, unless you want to use some specific coding integration to make 3D, I think that Midjourney is the best tool to use. But Adobe has just launched another AI tool that is going to be implemented in all his AI services, and this also would ease the process of creating 3D images.
Right. Yeah. Great points. And it seems like, I think where we're going with this is, it seems like the potential use cases for AI are limitless, and it's cool to
Yeah.
see on the consumer level how a lot of these technologies are being used. And I think it's one of those technologies that enterprises are going to have to catch up to pretty quickly to make sure they're not left behind in this whole thing here. This is from Rahul on LinkedIn. Rahul says, will the introduction of disruptive technology impact our education system for better? How can we devise our curriculum in the future to benefit from all such technologies? So I thought you might be interested in that question, especially because of your background, and I'll keep the question up here just so you can see it.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
but what are your thoughts on this? This is a great question for you.
So I think that in general, it always very much depends on what's your objective and which is the kind of role that you're aiming at achieving with your curriculum. Why are you studying? Why are you working? Because you can benefit from technology, but still it depends. So it's not suitable for everything. It depends on the way you use it. So now I cannot give you a customized answer because I don't know what's your background. I don't know what you want to do. But I would say that in general, if you want to find a job, for example, ChatGPT can really help you in try to scrape among all the internet and try to give you more insights on how should you present yourself if you want to get that job, how
Hmm.
that job will look like in practice. So it's not just, okay, you have an idea. So actually give you more detailed information on what you're going to do, which are the skills required, but also can simulate an interview. So you could have sort of, you can say, okay, present me a script of 5 minutes of an interview to get this job in X country. And ChatGPT will create it. I tried it.
Hmm.
So really, you can really use it to prepare yourself as much as possible if you want to be employed. While on the other side, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to be a content creator, then I come back to what I was saying before, that you can really just make your own company from scratch just with the input and help of ChatGPT and other AI tools. So it's not just ChatGPT, but this, I would say, the key point is literally the integration of all AI tools together. So just to make an example, I tried the other day on my Instagram channel where I talk about business automation in Italian. So if you're Italian, I will talk in Italian there. That I just wanted to create a croissanterie, so a bar, a restaurant that makes luxurious croissant. And I asked ChatGPT to create the name, the payoff, an idea for the logo. Then I went to brandmark.io that creates logos, and I created my logo in like
Hmm.
1 minute, literally. Then I went to durable.co and creates website. So I got the draft of the website in 2 minutes. So I have a starting point from for everything if I want to set up my business. And that's why I think it's helpful because you just automate tasks.
Right. No, that's great. And just as a plug for your brand and your social media outlets, you have a really good Instagram channel, and that's how you and I first connected. Now you've got a TikTok channel. Maybe just
Yeah.
real quick while we're talking, what's the handle name, or how can people find you on social media? Just while we're talking here.
Yeah, so it's my surname and my name. I don't know if I can type it or you can type it because I think that if it's hard for you to pronounce, it's even harder to actually understand it just from pronunciation.
Right. I'll ask our marketing team to drop it in the chat.
Okay, thank you very much.
then maybe to Instagram because you have the bigger following there at the moment. But if you're
Yeah,
on TikTok listening, you can also find her by just look up
yeah,
Munaretto Chiara. Um,
exactly.
it'll, but with a better accent, if you think of it verbally. So here's a really interesting question or a comment I think that's maybe worth
Hmm.
a small debate or a short debate on with the audience. And this is from Jeff on LinkedIn. Jeff says all technology eliminates jobs. There are no telephone operators or humans calculating missile guidance trajectories with slide rules. And it's a great point. He's very right that technology has, through history, eliminated jobs. Yet here we are. Most of us have jobs still. So I guess it gets back to the debate of, okay, let's just assume ChatGPT is going to eliminate jobs. And there's some speculation in the technology industry, for example. You talked about coding a moment ago. There's
Yeah.
speculation that the technology industry and coders and developers and people that do relatively, I don't want to say commodity based tasks, but things that are cut and dry, either the code works or it doesn't. Um, there's a case to be made that it will eliminate technology jobs, in this case with coders, just as an example. But maybe let's come back to the whole concept of let's think this through. Let's assume that ChatGPT is going to eliminate a certain percentage of developers and coders in the world, in the technology world. What are some examples of what types of jobs might now be created that didn't exist before that might displace those people? And yes, it's disruptive, but at least they have other opportunities they could potentially move into. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That's an interesting question. I haven't dove deep in the topic yet, but if we think about that, more and more companies will adopt AI. You still need to think about that new AI models needs to be created. So specifically for developers, I think that it's more than they need to acquire new skills. So if 5 years ago HTML coding was the most needed because everyone needed a website, now maybe AI programming language are more needed.
Mm,
So I think also in terms of skill, it's somehow all evolving and changing. So the knowledge that you needed before may not be needed, but this doesn't mean that you stop there. If you want to grow, you grow with the technology, and so you learn new things.
got
But
you.
of course, this is challenging.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Um, let's come back to another question that you actually answered this in passing earlier in the discussion, but Ruth on LinkedIn asked a question which I think is worth coming back to or maybe diving in a little bit more, which is, can you identify some use cases where AI can help with repetitive tasks? I know you mentioned a few, but maybe you could reiterate some of those or some
Yeah,
additional ones that you've
I
seen.
think this is actually a challenging question because if there's one thing AI could do is actually eliminate repetitive jobs. So helping in repetitive tasks, it's a challenging question, but I think that in general, copywriting,
Mm,
that it's really the top application now, but also virtual assistant, so customer service, for example, all those tasks that before required a lot of time. But as I just mentioned with the Microsoft Copilot, but there's also this app that is called Tome, like Tome.ai, that just makes presentations, slides of presentations, even automated with a video coming from a text. So I would say that marketing in general is one of the key sectors that involves some repetitive tasks. So for example, if we take social medias, we went from posting directly, so take our phone and post directly, to scheduling, so that you can schedule social medias. Now with AI, you can create a description, you can schedule the post directly, and this is all repetitive task because if you post 4 times a week, you repeat this task 4 times a week. Well, you can just create this at once. So I think that in general, marketing and sales are very much the biggest industry that can benefit from ChatGPT at the moment.
yeah, those are great examples. I know for sales, a lot of my job is business development and sales at my company. And I actually just tried ChatGPT and I said, write an email to a potential client introducing my consulting company.
Yeah,
And I didn't even tell it what my consulting company was or anything. I just was very vague, very basic. And it came back with a really good email. I mean, I thought it was
yeah,
awesome. I just, if I were to actually use it, which I didn't use it, I have my own that I use, but I just wanted to see what it did. If I were to use that, I would have had to make maybe 30 to 60 seconds of changes just to tweak it, and I could have cut and paste that
Exactly.
to customers. So that saved me, you think that email probably would have taken the average person 5+ minutes to write, but now you've cut it down to, less than a minute potentially. And I also think too, the more we talk about this, I think about the history of enterprise technologies. Let's talk about organizations for a minute and the job displacement. Technology has always been displacing people. I mean, it's a constant struggle, right? It's constantly
Yeah.
automating jobs. It's constantly changing jobs. You think about the average customer service clerk that spends a lot of time just looking for information or managing spreadsheets. You still need those customer service clerks, but maybe they're not spending nearly as much time now looking for information and putting together spreadsheets. Maybe now they're doing a higher level of thinking and focusing on what's the root cause of why are we getting customer complaints, or why are we not selling more? What can we do different to sell more products or services, or to provide better customer service, or whatever it is. I feel like it sort of elevates, it sort of handles those menial tasks, and it could potentially elevate us all to where we're thinking more strategically and, more higher value add sorts of things. I just
Yeah,
think
it
that,
just like I would say that it very much enhances the data you have. So one of the key things that I also in the future it will be fundamental is make use of the data we have. So if we don't have standardized data, if we don't understand what we have, then it's difficult to build upon what we are creating. So also find KPIs, find ways to measure. Technology can help very much in this, whatever industry we are into, whether it's a matter of giving new suggestions based on the data we have, or whether it's a matter of programming a new software that standardizes codes, for example, in supply chain. Like, there are very much a lot of application, but always everything comes down to data. How much data you collected and how much data you can process and make use of, because otherwise you're always limited to the knowledge you have, but not actually all the information that you have access to.
right. Great point. Um, Here's another interesting comment from Drone Mountain on YouTube. And this user says, "Hi, all. Great conversation
Yeah.
here. I ChatGPT the other evening, asked it to create a kid's book based on my dog Ted. It then gave me book title suggestions, 6 book title suggestions, each with their own chapters. Mind blown."
Yeah,
And
if you go around like YouTube, TikTok, you will see a lot of people that will just say how to make $1,000 with ChatGPT. One of the key suggestions is always write child books, always. But also there, it depends what's your purpose, why you're doing it. So, but yes,
right,
it's a good use case.
right. And maybe one last thing here that's a funny comment that I appreciate here from William on YouTube. The Accenture is going to do a Kimberling deepfake commercial. Stay tuned. And I wouldn't put it past Accenture to do a deepfake. So don't buy it. If you see a video of me talking about how awesome Accenture is and how you don't need anyone independent helping you in your project, it's not me. And then also Ryan on LinkedIn, thank you for posting
Thank
the
you.
Chiara's Instagram account. You can see right here in front of you visually. At least at the very least, you can see the spelling of her name, so you can search for that on Instagram or on TikTok. If you're watching there, it's Munaretto Chiara. In fact, when I search, I just put in Chiara, Chira, and then I put MUN, and you're the first one that comes up because I don't know how to spell your whole name without looking at it. So you've got that there too. Well, good. Well, I want to thank you for your time here, Chiara. This is a great conversation. This is easily a 4-hour discussion, and I had a
Yeah.
feeling we wouldn't get past ChatGPT or AI. I think that's its own animal, and I think we spent a lot of time on that, and that's good. I don't think we necessarily need to get past that, but I really appreciate you being here today. What are some resources, or do you have any resources you suggest for people to learn more about AI? Certainly, you're just as a plug for you. Your
Yeah.
Instagram channel is really good, especially some of the recent videos you put up about ChatGPT. I'm fascinated by those, and some of them you are speaking in Italian, but you have the English
I
subtitles.
always have the English subtitles, yes.
Yeah, so great stuff. But in addition to that, what other resources do you recommend for people that just want to learn more about ChatGPT?
Yes, so if we consider the hot topic moment, just like the newspapers, we'll talk about it. So, like TechCrunch, for example, so the ones more into technology. but then just ask ChatGPT, really. So
That's true.
if you can just like keep up with the news and try to also find value behind technology, because of course, like, it depends what you want to learn about AI. So if you want to improve your skills and automate business, for example, thanks to AI, it's more about getting to know more websites, more softwares that do these kind of things. And I would say that actually one of the greatest source of information is just people talking about it. So just try to look for some people, rather on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, they talk about, on LinkedIn as well, they talk about these topics. But otherwise, on Chrome, just download the extension so you can access real-time data and ask ChatGPT as well.
Yeah. Well, you want to know, Chiara, I'll ask you one last question. Do you want to know one thing that ChatGPT cannot replicate yet?
Tell me. This
This
conversation. I'm sorry.
so predictable. All right. I thought I had
Yeah.
you. Yes, this conversation, ChatGPT has nothing on us. So
Yeah,
I do want to thank you because this is much better than talking to ChatGPT about
absolutely.
ChatGPT. In fact, I did that, by the way. I asked her several weeks ago. I just wanted to know, what does ChatGPT say about
Yeah.
itself? And I said, what is ChatGPT? And it was a good start, but nothing like this conversation. This is much more rich and deep, getting into some of the use cases and examples of how this is affecting our lives. So thank you very much for being here to help us unpack this important trend and topic in the industry. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And if you have any further question or something that you want to ask me, just drop me a message on LinkedIn. I'm mostly active there for, let's say, English speaking. And I'm happy to help you with any question you have or just share knowledge.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Connect with her on LinkedIn. You can find her on Instagram and TikTok as well. She puts up really good, engaging 30 to 60-second videos and other resources out there. So I encourage you to follow her there. Thank you to the audience for the great questions, too, on all the platforms they're streaming to. Really appreciate that. Again, this conversation, this live conversation, will get edited and prettied up and polished and integrated with other content, becomes part of Transformation Ground Control, which is a podcast I host each week, and it comes out every Wednesday. So this episode will come out a week from tomorrow, which will stream to LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, as well as all the audio podcast platforms like Amazon, Google, Apple Podcasts, all those different platforms. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here. I hope you all have a great week, and look forward to seeing you next time, same place. Every week we do these live streams, discussions to talk about digital transformation stuff. Have a great week in the meantime, and we will see everyone soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.